atmosphere, the ambiance, the vibration by which we all come together. For we can all be there. We can all be, even if it is just for this moment, in a place in which we harmonize, in which we begin to feel our strength and our power and our wholeness and the goodness that we are, so that we stand straight, we see clearly, we hear that which is the good that needs to be heard, and we begin to know truth. How wonderful that is. On the opening night after this interwoven ritual, or maybe it was later, I don't, you spend a week there, you forget what day was this day and that day, and it all just begins to become one. But we had some dynamic speakers that opened up our conference. So one was Dr. Ken Gordon, who is our elected community spiritual leader. Now, if you're not familiar with Centers for Spiritual Living, let me give you a brief history of it. It's 5 months old. Centers for Spiritual Living has only been in existence for 5 months. We have 100 years of history that goes along with that. Because prior to that, we were United Centers for Spiritual Living, International Centers for Spiritual Living, and before that we were United Church of Religious Science and Religious Science International, and before that we were the Church of Religious Science, and we were one in the beginning when the founder Ernest Holmes created all of this. And so you can see we've gone through some vibrations, we've gone through some changes, we've gone through some separations, and we've gone through some new labels and titles and different names. And then 5 months ago, we came back together and declared ourselves as one. Centers for Spiritual Living. 5 months old, with 100 years of history. It boggles the mind to know how we are doing this. And so we have created, for the first time, a newly elected community spiritual leader for this new organization now called Centers for Spiritual Living. And there was a lot of legal mumbo-jumbo that had to happen in order for the IRS and the government and everybody else to understand what we have done, because we are still the philosophy of science of mind. We're still the teaching of the science of mind text. We're still science of mind and religious scientists and practitioners, each and every one of us that practices this teaching. Some of us are licensed, but there we are, the science of mind, now called Centers for Spiritual Living. That's our history. And we have a community spiritual leader, Dr. Ken Gordon, who has a center in Canada, kind of on the east side of Canada. I forget now exactly where it's at. Kelowna, if anybody knows where that's at. So he is our first international leader. Not only our first elected leader of Centers for Spiritual Living, but in our 100-year history, he's our first international leader. And then we've created a new position that's called the president. So we have a community spiritual leader who looks outward into the world and is the voice, is the representation to the rest of the traditions and the faiths and the world, and says, I am here to represent that which is Centers for Spiritual Living. And we have a president who looks inward into the inner workings, the structure, the business, the day-to-day operations, how we work ourselves in the business of doing church. or Centers for Spiritual Living. And this is Dr. John Waterhouse, who comes from the center in Asheville, North Carolina. And I call them both dear friends, and they are. But I call them dear friends because they connect who we are as a local center in Palm Springs, a local center in Palm Desert, into the oneness that we are as the Center for Spiritual Living. So my motto this past week had been to begin to speak in these words: I am a Center for Spiritual Living. The I am being very personal, but it's also very universal. So it interconnects all of us together. And that vibration begins to attract to me those who are also feeling and knowing that they are a center for spiritual living. They have come to the awareness, to the awakening, that first and foremost, they are infinite, eternal, and absolute and spiritual in a human form, having experience in this world, in this life. But it is not the totality of who we are. It is just the form of who we are in this present time and space. But in the mind of the infinite and the eternal, we are already whole, perfect, and complete. So what is our purpose? Our purpose is to reveal that. To reveal that in our daily thoughts and our words and our action. So in the revelation of this, if I am speaking in the complaint department and have to move my band over here, then this is the truth that I'm beginning to declare for myself. And it's the vibration that I'm living in that moment. And in some place, in some way, in some universal law, because the law is impersonal. It's not making any choices or any decisions or any likeness or dislikeness of it. It's just responding to me with that yes. So if my word is in complaint and my vibration is in the department of complaint, then the universal law is allowing for that attraction to come into my experience even more, increased, multiplied, pressed down and overflowing. And so when it shows up that it looks like everything in my life is about a complaint, I have to go back to center and say, and what has been my thought? What has been my word? What have I been speaking? And how do I move out of that? How do I bring myself back to center? How do I bring myself back to the knowingness of who I am? And that takes some work. That takes some effort. It doesn't just happen. Everybody moves through the experience of life in this revelation of truth, and sometimes it does not always look pretty. Now, maybe not for you, but in my experience and in my observation, most of us are going through what I have been calling challenges. We look at life and we see a challenge of finances. We see a challenge of health. We see a challenge of awareness. We see a challenge of relationship. We see challenges in so many ways. And in our Science of Mind magazine, and I brought an extra copy. Actually, I was given this. We were all given this as a gift, the August edition of Science of Mind magazine. In the very beginning, it says, what do we believe? And all of these statements of belief, and here's one here. It says, we believe in the healing of the sick through the power of this mind. We believe in the healing of the sick through the power of this mind. Oh, but if it were that easy. Simple, but not necessarily easy. But if you want to be healed of something, it is available to you in the power of your mind. Do you have a subscription to this? Oh,